We have the customer table here. Let's play with the customer table. I just increased the fonts a little bit just so it doesn't hurt my eyes. But you can see this, it has, I'm not going to, I have to scroll each time now because I have increased the fonts, but that's okay. I will just shrink it a little bit here so I can look at there. If I can further shrink it. Yeah. Okay, so this is the query that we have for the customer. Now what I'm going to do that is, let's create a new table, which is, I'm going to keep this same table. I don't want to change anything in the customer table because this is my live table. So this is not the ideal solution that I'm doing it, but I'm going to say okay, if I'm going to fix an issue for temporarily, I already have a customer table already in my database. So I will not touch this because this could be my live or production table, right? So I'm going to create a copy of it, and way I will do it in SQL Server is say select all from this table and all these columns, or I can say select star into customer one, a new table that I'm going to create, and paste it. So paste everything that is in the customer table into which table? Into the customer one table. So when I'll do that and run this query, it says that 12 rows are affected, a new table is created. If I'll go here and refresh it, actually I'll just refresh the table section. Here you go, I have the customer one table created. So it's very easy to create a copy of it, but as you see, there's no right click, copy and paste kind of idea here. You always have to kind of write the query to get the copy of it. All right, so you can get the copy of the data right away in SQL Server as long as you know how to write this query. All you need to write is just one line, add one line before the from clause and just say into customer one, and then it will create a copy of it. The only slight difference you might see, and it could be a bigger difference, it could be a bigger problem, but I will show you, is that if you go here in customer and see all the keys, when you see the key in the actual customer table, we have a primary key on customer, but when it dumps the data into a customer one table, it does not create the key. So that's the only difference. Other thing is, it is very close with the column sizes, 60, 60. Let's see if it is close. Yeah, it is very close. So it is very close in the schema format, except the key is not created, right? So what do you want? You want, when you are creating a copy of a table, first of all, you will just use into that table name that you want to create, which you did. The next thing that you want, because this is a copy of the table, you want it as close as to the actual customer table, because so that if the more closer you get to the actual schema, the more chances are that you are able to fix the underlying issue, right? So the more difference are between the customer and the customer table, the more you are far from the actual issue, right? So this is good that we are very close. Now if I go to the key section, I can create the key. I can right click here and I'll say script the key and create a key code for the key, primary key. So if I do that, it will actually create, it is actually right now creating a code for the primary key. But for which it has created? It has created the code for the customer table. Where I'm missing the key is actually in which table? In the customer one table. So I will be wise here and I will just say that, hey, I know my customer table already has it, so I don't need this key. I just generated the code intelligently and say that, can you create a code for the primary key? And I say, once it does that, I'll just quickly change it to what? Customer one, and run this query. Now, when I will run this and refresh this table, customer one, and go to the key, it has created the primary key as well. See that it has added some garbage in front of it. I'm not worried about that. All I'm worried is that the primary key is created or not. pk underscore customer, the primary key is created, and the primary key is created actually on customer ID. Do you guys okay? So I can actually create in an actual scenario, if this is the only server that my company has, only SQL server, not Azure. If this is the only SQL server that I have, I would like to have 3 different environments. First environment would be like this, dash dev, so that I can connect to that. So I'm not doing, so if this is my production environment, this is my production environment, let's say. I will be very reluctant to create development tables in the production environment. For what reason? I want to keep production data separate from my testing data. This is my testing table, right? I don't want to be creating my test data or my test table in the production environment. So ideally, in an environment, I would need to have 3 servers. First server is a dev server. Then I can connect to it. It will have the similar structure. Instead of having a customer table, customer one table, it should have an actual same customer table in it, which is called customer only, not customer one. And that is for the development environment. Once I'll say disconnect from this, and I'll say I want to connect back to dash dev, it will bring up the same kind of environment. Obviously, I don't have a dev server at the moment, but I'm just pretending that once I click connect, it will bring me all the tables from the dev environment. Next time when I'll say UAT, it will bring me all the data from which environment? All the schemas from the UAT environment. All those 3 environments will have the same table names, not customer 1, not customer 2, just the customer, 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 customer in all 3 different environments. And my live production environment will be like this, dash nothing, with nothing in it. If you will be picky, you can say live, but that's not the point. Point is dash dev will be development environment, dash UAT will be a UAT environment, and no text added will be my production environment. But anyways, I don't have that luxury here, so I will just leave it at that, and I'll just say okay, because I don't have that luxury. And keep in mind, having different SQL servers will cost me different SQL Server licenses, one for dev, one for UAT, one for production, right? So if I'm a small business, in order to save money, I can play some tricks on it and say that in the production environment, please developers, don't touch the actual customer table. If you are working for the development, work with the customer one table. At the last moment, change all your queries from customer one to customer. And what does that mean? For example, how I'm going to do that? Let's say if I'll say select top 1000 rows from customer, let's say I'm writing the queries, I'm joining the tables and whatnot, whatever happens. This is a very simple query, but at the last moment, I can change this to customer, and then it will point to which table? Customer table instead of a customer one table, and that's okay. But that's a risk as well, that if I forget to replace at one particular instance where customer, let's say if I have used joins and whatnot, and if I have a very complex query and I have used customer table a couple of times, and if I forget to do that, replacing the customer one to customer, then I might see a garbage data already. So that is why it is ideal to have 3 different servers. That's an ideal scenario, but not everyone can afford that. So customer one, if I'll just say customer, I'm starting to point to the customer one table. If I remove this, I'm going to start pointing at the actual live production customer table. But let's see if I have a customer table. Let's see what kind of data I have. And for throughout this next, I will be working with the customer one table, not the customer table, because I don't want to touch it anyways. I'm pretending that I'm working in the test in the dev environment. So let's go ahead, and for time being, I'm going to drop the primary key from the customer one table. So once I do that, if I'll run that, I run this query on the customer, but I change it to which table? Customer one table. So where it will happen, where the change will happen? It will happen here, not in the customer, because all I'm doing is quickly changing it to 1. So I'm going to change it back to this, to the customer one. I know I have a primary key just created, but I'm going to say, don't worry, please drop this primary key. So if I run this, okay, it is saying that the name is different. So I'll just say rename, and this garbage that it has added, I'm just going to put it in here, paste. So this primary key is gone. Refresh this table. This constraint is gone. So now I don't have any issue with the data. So in the real world, you will see a scenario. This doesn't make any difference in the data side, right? Because right now, customer table and customer one tables are equal. I have how many rows? 12 rows in the customer one table. This is the customer one table. I have 12 rows. Let's make some real world scenario in that data. So let's say for some reason, I'm going to say, let's see if it helps me. Edit, and I'll say I'll copy this guy, Joy, and copy this and paste it here. Let's see if it helps me. And I'm going to say, instead of balance of 80.68, I want it to be 90.68. Okay, so it helped me. And you might be wondering, I have 125 and there's another 125, right? Which I just copied and pasted. Here's the problem now. A big or a small, whatever you think, but it's a real world problem. So I'm going to close it. Don't worry about customer now, because I'm just working on customer one table. This is the defect in the data that you will going to be seeing. Order by. So this is why primary key is so important. Why primary key is so important? If I will try to insert 125 in the customer table, it will not let me insert in the customer table. Why? Because of the primary key constraint. But because I don't have any primary key constraint in the customer one table, what I have? A duplicate. You will see lot of duplicate related issues in the real world. The only difference is one guy has a balance of 80, other guy has a balance of 90.68, 80.68, 90.68. Okay. Other than that, data is okay, but this can potentially happen in the customer one table again. Do you agree? I can copy and paste another row and then that. First of all, this can come. So let's say one person is getting retired, another person is getting retired. Both were dealing with the same customer at some point, right? You said that, hey, retiree number one, can you give me your Excel sheet? You imported the data from that guy and imported it. This row was inserted in the table. Then you ask another guy and you said that, can you give me your data as well? I will import it from the Excel sheet. He said that, yes. Here you go. Here's this another Excel sheet. When you inserted it, it added two guys in the same table. So that is why I was saying, before you even bring it to SQL Server, analyze your sheets where duplicates are. If somebody is giving you sheet, here's the sheet, and another guy give you, here's the sheet. Before you bring the sheets in the SQL Server, before you create the problem in here, you say to that, well, I'm getting this sheet from person A and I'm getting this sheet from person B. The only issue is that this customer or these customers, or this, in this case there's only one customer, this customer ID number 125 has two entries, one from you and one from you, one from A and one from B. Your balance says 80, your balance says 90. Which one should I trust? There's a trust issue in the data now. Can you guys fix that issue together? Or accounting should fix it, because I'm just a developer. I can bring in the data. Bringing in data is not a problem. Import export wizard or any other way I can bring in the data. But what should be the issue? So if you will be in the office, how you will be fixing this issue? This is the issue. Trust the newest data. Good answer. But my question to you, which is the newest data? Or which one is the oldest data? You don't know. You don't know how you will solve this problem. Let's say you have you have two rows. Now the data is in SQL Server. Problem is already present in SQL Server. You didn't realize it, you bring in the data in SQL Server. That's why I said fix the data before it comes into SQL. But you didn't realize it, you brought in the data. Now how you will solve it? Keep the one which is the latest one. Ryan Christian is saying that. Good answer. But how can I just look at the data and see that? Which one is the latest data? By just not looking. But I know I entered it, but we don't know which of those sheets where I imported the data into SQL Server has the latest data. I don't know. So for that scenario, they have to, business has to fix it. But what I like to have in SQL Server, add another column. So how I can add another column? So if you have this kind of a scenario and you think that it can happen later on, if you are importing the data from legacy databases, you will like to have a column. So let's go back to W3 schools, alter table, add column. Let's look at that. Oh, don't let me. It's just giving me pain. Copy this. And I'm going to add a column. And I'm solving it for not only for this, but for the future as well. So alter table customer, I'm lucky that I have the same table. Add this column called last added on. All your tables should have this column, last edit on, or last inserted on, or something like that, when it was last edited on with the date and time. This column is now inserted. So I have, and I'll gonna add that column to my select query from now onwards. So I'm going to say I need this column for future, copy. Okay, part of the problem is solved, not solved. Part of, I am working towards solving the problem. Okay, so now I have another column added at the end called last edit on, right? Okay, so all those guys, all that has been entered is entered, right? And I want one more thing here. If I want to add, let's see if I can add that as well. Alter table person, yeah, copy this. I'm going to change this. Yeah, this is MS. Yeah, okay. I added this column. You guys were okay. I'm going to add it a little differently. So first I need to drop this column. So I can do it. How I can drop a column? Alter table customer 1, drop which column? Last edit on. I'm going to drop it. Let's see, let me drop it. Could not drop the constraint. Okay, so alter table this, alter city, drop default. No, not default. I want to see my last search. Add a column, drop the column. Alter table customer, drop column email. So why it is not letting me drop the column? It should let me drop the column. Control V, customer, drop. Oh, I forgot one thing. Drop column has to be put the drop column. So I just need to add that, and then it will drop that column. So I can add a column and I can drop a column. But I wanted to add a column. It's one more feature to it. So that's why I'm doing it again. So that column is dropped. So you will see that if I run this query now, it will give me an error because it says that this column is no more because I deleted it. So I can add a column, I can drop a column as well. But I wanted to add a column with this functionality. Default, alter table, add a call, alter table, add constraint, but this is the constraint. This one. Maybe I should this copy. So add a column, customer one, default, date and time with the constraint, and also add the constraint. Maybe it is just too much for one query. I think alter queries one works one at a time. Default, get date. Do you know what get date does in SQL Server? Gets the current system date and time. Do you remember that? And I can verify that for you. I need to type select get date, and I'll say this. So what will happen if I run this query now? It will give me current date and time 10/18/52. So when I'll run it next time, it will be 10/19/02, right? Every time you run this query, it will be little different. Time could be a good primary key constraint, right? But it is not going to, I'm not going to put that as a constraint. So default for which column? Last edit column. So I wanted to add it in this way. So alter table customer, add this column with the date and time data type. The default value of it should be what? The date. For which column? The column that I'm adding it. Let's see if it let me do that, if it does not find any syntax error. But that's my intention is. Yeah. It did let me add a new column, last edit on with the date time, but the default value will be get date. So now if I run this query, where is the value? It did not give me the last edit on with the time. I did create that, and I was hoping that it put the date for each row, but it didn't. So let me just go do it by manually. I'm going to deal with that later on, but here is the null value. So let's say this data for 125 was added on 2023-01-01 on January 1st. and this data is added on today 2023-05-16. So if the data, so let's say if gentleman number 1 gave me the data on January 1st, 2023, this is gentleman number 1's data. Today, gentleman number 2 gave me this data 0516. See this? Now I have a little bit more clear idea. And if somebody says now, hey Kashan, disregard the older one, keep the new one, then I have a solution. So in the scenario where you have lot of data, and let's say your data does not have a primary key constraint, your table does not have a primary key constraint, you can run into these issues. Which data to trust? And if you have millions and billions of data and you're just bringing in the data from different sources, you don't know when you can encounter a duplicate. This is only just 12 rows. I'm not looking at millions of rows each day just to verify if this guy was entered on January 1st and if this guy is getting entered on today. I don't know. I'll have to, I'm not looking at opening at each and every Excel sheet that comes to me to import the data, right? Because I can have a lot of data coming in from different sources. So now if I run this query, I have all the other guys are okay, but some of the guys have null. And because I added this column just today, so I know that this could be an issue. But for the most part, you see that this issue can be resolved. These guys are not the issue anymore at the moment. But in the future, some guy might enter a random data again and come from different source, and the primary key might have a duplicate. Then what can I do? If I know how to solve this problem, I will be able to solve other problems as well similar to that. First of all, that problem should not have even occurred if the data is coming all right. But this can happen because you get data from different sources, particularly in the table where you have foreign keys. And in the foreign keys, you can allow multiple, in one-to-many relationship, you can have multiple rows for the same guy. So that in that case, you can have duplicates. You'll not be able to put any constraint on that, just like similar to primary key. And this is a very important sentence that I'm saying, that in the primary table, you might have a primary key constraint, but in the secondary table, you can have duplicates. And this is the issue. So what can I do? First of all, let me put every time a row is getting inserted into this table, first of all, this null doesn't look good to me, so let me get rid of null. So let's say I will run the update query, update customer 1 set last edit on is equals to get date where last edit on is null. The rest of the 11 rows which were setting at null, will now look better. I don't know why I have the temptation to close the table again and again, but let's see. All the rest of the guys which were null are now set to get date. So tomorrow when I will get 500 more rows, 500 more new customers, they might have a different last addend on date. The next day I will get 1000 customer, they will have a different last addend on date, depending when at what time I bring in the data into SQL Server. So I might have this guy on 16th, this guy might be on 17th, this guy might be on April, right, or some other date, but I might have a lot of data. This is a very small data set, that's why you are not seeing it. But here you can see this was entered at night, this is entered right now. Because the get date data type is date and time, that is why, because I just went inserting the date, it just gives by default. If I don't give it a time, it will give the day, it will give the date as okay, but the time will be in the 12 a.m. But that's okay, as long as I know when it is inserted. Sometimes transactions are time critical, which you will might have to check the time as well, but to find out the duplicates. But at the moment, it might be a situation that you have a duplicate happened at the same day on 2023 0516. You have two records entered on the same day, but might be on different times. Then you, in that case, you will pick up the one that has the latest time. So in this situation, you agree that I should disregard this one and keep this one. So now you have the solution, but I want to make a query to show me only one record for this guy 125 instead of two. So I can go back to the business and show that, hey, I have two for this customer, I have two rows for this customer. I think this one will be the this this one we should keep, and this one we will get rid of. This one we should keep, this one we can get rid of. And I always want to use the order by, so you can see that. I'll not close this anymore. So here's the duplicate order by. Now, how can I write a query to remove the duplicate, to get only one row of these two? So I will have a latest record. I'm going to create one more duplicate guy for Billy, so that you can see. We have a problem for just one gentleman. Now we have a problem for two gentlemen. So the problem can get fat and fatter. I need to write a query to find the greatest and one of each. And I'm going to make sure that the time, there's a little bit of time difference between the two guys. So let me do that. In the real scenario, you cannot have this duplicates like this, because they will be getting inserted at different date and different times. So let's say change this time to, where's Billy, 10:20. Maybe just make it 17. So we are just dealing with the time, with the date only. Now if I run this query, here's the real world scenario. We have the duplicate. Keep the latest of the two. For this guy, J Smith, keep this one, and for this guy, show me this one. I don't want these guys, but at least before I delete that, I can show it to the business. This is what is actually happening. We should stop it. We should not have this coming in the future. But now it's in the database. How can I fix it? Give me 5-minute break. I will come back and show. I will write a query in between time and show you how we can get rid of duplicates. There are two ways of doing it. I will see if I can show you both. I don't remember. I vaguely remember one, but I do remember the other one. So let me and then when I'm done, I'll call you guys back. Yes. One solution that we were thinking was to go manually and find out, delete from the customer where the balance is 80.68 and 43.13. Will you be visually looking at which customer has two records, number one, and then finding out the exact dollar amounts and then deleting that row? That could be a long process, right? Finding out, okay, Mr. Kashan has two IDs. He has balance of 90 and he also has a balance of 80. So let's keep the 91 and delete the 81. So the way to solve this kind of issue, and SQL Server is really good in and actually SQL in general, is that you can solve the issue. So we all now know how to write the select statement like this, and we can write the column names like this. Let me just share my screen. I'm going to see what Kimberly has to say first. Right. There are multiple solutions that you guys are now thinking. Good. I will try this query as well. But let's go over this query first. There's something called, you can create your column on the runtime. Okay, so keep that you can create another column on the runtime. I'm naming this column as a row number. Okay. How I can create a column on runtime is that I'll assign, there's a keyword called row underscore number, and over, you want to partition it for each individual customer. So if you look at this table, if you look at this data, customer ID is one time, and this customer ID is second time. See this? And we know that this is the problem. So what I'm saying is that I will come to this outer part in a moment, but I want to say partition on customer ID. Partition on customer ID, meaning that you are actually saying group on customer ID. So you are saying this and this are considered as one group. So partition that. Okay. If I look at this 314 and 375 and 435, there is only one record for these guys. So when I'll try to partition that, I cannot further partition it because 294 is already is only repeated once. So I can the maximum group that I can create with the number of it is just one person, one transaction for that guy. Same with Tom, same with Melanie, and same with all the others. But what I'm saying is, for each individual customer ID, if you find duplicates, make them group. This one will be 1, this one will be 2. But how are we going to be doing that? And order by, I will come back in a moment. So I want to first that partition on customer ID. So it says that, okay, this guy has 2 IDs. This guy has 2 IDs. So I can partition them. I can partition them. I can partition these guys. I cannot further partition it because this is only one, but I will still try to partition it. If I'll partition it, I will get only one time of that guy. If I'll partition this, I will only get one time of this guy. So only with these two guys, Joe and Billy, we have two. And what I'm saying is, when you find the 2 duplicates of these guys, can you do me one more favor? Order them by last edit on in descending order. So if you look at this part, and I'll come back to after other part in a moment, but you said that if you find 2 of them, please put on the latest one. If this is the latest one and this is the oldest one, order them. So when you find the duplicates, order them first in descending order. So yes, this is order them in the descending order with respect to last edit on, isn't it? It is, because if you see this, this is May 16th and this is January 1st. So it ordered them descending. If you look at Billy guy, he should be also in order, in descending order. So go back here and look at this 17 and 16, and that is what is essentially you are asking. Partition based on the customer ID. Wherever you find it, once or duplicate, doesn't really matter. For once it will be okay because it will be already in the descending order of its own. But if you find duplicates, partition them by customer ID and sort them in the descending order of the dates. Once you find that, assign that a row number. Give them a row number over this criteria that I'm asking. What is the criteria? Partition on the duplicate. So in general terms, what I'll say, partition on the duplicate. What is the duplicate? Customer ID. This is the shortcut that I'm telling you. Partition on the duplicate. And then wherever if they are inserted twice, there must be a factor of finding the latest and the greatest versus the oldest. So there is an order as well that you find out. If you find the duplicate, they must have been implemented or inserted on 2 different dates. So please order them in the descending order of the date so that I can have the latest record. Right? And name this column as a row number. Name this column as a row number. Rest of the columns, just split them out as usual. You got it? Right. This is we're gonna do it afterwards. So now if I have this, if I'll run this query, I can just print out, I can take this printout or this report to my manager and say, here's the problem in the data that I'm finding. This is the latest record. This is the older record. Which record you want me to keep? If he says keep the older record, then you will say, then you will run a delete query, which I will show you. or if he says keep the latest record, then you will keep the one which is, oh, then if he says keep the older record, you will keep the this one, the number with the 2. If he says keep the latest record, you already have it on row number 1 for each. You got it? So this is the first step, that you take the paper or you take the query and show that these are the two guys which I am finding the duplicate. These are the 500 guys which I have the duplicates. Remember, in the real world, you might not have one or two guys. You might have more like these. But you solved it all with one query, not writing that delete that guy with that balance, delete that guy with the other balance. You are not deleting, you are not going to do that. The last part of the query, I can put this, whether I want to put it in a drive table or I can put it in the common table expression. Remember the two guys. Remember, common table expression was easier, right? So I will just say with CTE underscore find, I can just name it whatever, find duplicates, right? Underscore customer. Find duplicate customer. This is this common table expression that I created now. So in this common table expression, once the common table expression completes, all you need to type is select all from CTE underscore, what is the name of that? I need to put as well. Control V. So now if I run this whole query as like this, I want to put one more thing here, brackets. Because common table expression likes to have a bracket. So I put a bracket for common table expression. So all of this query is now under a common table expression. And we learned about common table expression. It's under the common table expression now. Now if I run this query, it is giving me, this query is basically running this whole query that is inside this, because I put that in the body of the common table expression. And what is the common table expression? Just general syntax of common table expression, just for a revision, with common table expression as bracket open, the query that you have, and then the bracket close, and then you can call that common table expression. Where, and if your boss says show me all the latest records, so what you will do, where row num equals to 1. So now at row number 1, because of the descending nature of this, the latest record will get the number 1, right, all the time. So if I'll run this query, it will filter out and don't show me the number 2, because I know that number 2 is the older record. So Joy is showing up once, Billy is showing up once, all of the other guys doesn't really matter because they all have one record anyways. But good part is, if you go scroll here, you will see the latest date is coming up as well. January 1st record for this Jim Smith is gone, and for Billy Ruff, 16th day record is also gone. Not gone, it's still in the it still exists in the customers table, but with the help of CTE, I'm able to see only one record for that guy. right? So if I one last nail in this coffin to get rid of the duplicates. Let's say your boss says keep one and delete two. So what you will do, delete from customer one where row num is greater than 2, and I don't need to select all. I'm just going to say something like this. Where uh, but that requires a little bit of work on it. But yeah, I think I can delete it directly. Delete from, yeah, it will automatically delete greater than 1, sorry, greater than 1, because 1 itself is the latest record. So now if I run this query, it will actually delete it from the customer one table. Let's see if it does that. 2 rows affected, those 2 are deleted. If it would be 500 guys with the 500 duplicates all in one query, you don't have to go and find the specific record. 2 records affected, I didn't need to write find and whatever deleted. I just said I replaced the select query with the delete query, and it did find that, and I deleted all those ones that are greater than 2. And remember, number 1 was the latest record, number 2 was the older record. So it find out the 2 guys, deleted that and showed me. So I can, if I want to reaffirm, Joy has now the latest record, Billy now has the latest record. Those 2 older records are gone. Good problem to have, right? Difficult problem, but we understand how did we find it and solve it. There's another way to solve the problem, but I'm not thinking about that.